A big hello and a very good morning to all the students. I hope you're doing good. And all those who have not watched part number 5 or maybe part number 1 to part number 5, I reckon they go back and check part number 1 to part number 5 because that is the prerequisite for today's class. Right? So the class requires thorough knowledge of class number 1 to class number 5. So in case if you have missed any of the parts and you are directly jumping to part number 6, should go back and check part number 1 to part number 5. So let's quickly start with today's topic, which is cookies. Right, cookies means that you have to persist with specific timings, right? And for specific timings, right, you need your session to be present inside the client computer, right? What we are doing here, let me give you a small demo. But before I give you demo, let me quickly wind up the question that I asked last time, right? And this is our welcome.jsp. What I was trying to do, if I go to welcome.jsp directly, so we get an exception. Why? Because we changed accounts controller dot is authorized function. We said that it is now a static function which is authorized, right? And it is this function, right, that we have called here. Right, going to check. So this is the only function which will be checking whether the session is authorized or the user is authorized to visit the page or not. Okay, and same is happening inside profile.jsp, checking whether this user is or the client is authorized or not, right? Whether it's a logged in user or an anonymous user. So I'll directly go to authorize. And you can clearly see here, the function does nothing. It's a static function. Why? Because we have to call this function without making any object of the class. So now you can see the function is doing not much, only checking if the session is valid, right? And if the session is not valid, means if the session is null, redirect the user with due respect. Take the user and redirect him back to main page. So the response is redirected back to main page in case if the user has not successfully logged in. So now the function is causing a null pointer exception, and one of the basic reason about that is if you do not have money and I'm asking you, please give me let's say about 10 rupees, and you do not have that, right? I'm asking something that you do not have. So that is where the null pointer exception lies. You are initializing something without being declared. There's where the null pointer exception lies. I'm asking something. I'm asking you something that you do not have, right? You're asking session to get the attribute, right? So, but you're calling m, which is the model object dot get session. You're calling m dot get response. You're calling get session and get response. Yes, that get session and get response completely worked inside the login function right here. If you can see, if I go to authorize, right, as you can see that session is working, user.getSession.set attribute and send redirect. Both are working with authorized. That's only because your login is passing them. User.set session and user.set response. But now individually, if you see, this is an individual page. It does not have link with any other page, right? Because it's individually designed, and this page has its own implicit request and implicit response objects individually belonging to this specific page, right? And once you are calling authorized function, you're passing the model. Now does the model right here, does the model have session and response? Have you used set? You have not set. How can you get? You can see right here, we haven't set, right? So before passing the model to authorized function, it's as simple as anything. I'll say m dot set response to response and m dot set session to session, right? So the moment we do this, and you can see that we are clearly now redirected back to main page. Now is authorized function is working. Why? Because is authorized function has found the request and response of a specific page. And now if I go to profile is still same, and it's going to throw an exception, which is null pointer exception again. Yeah, but if I do the same here, right, and see, it will be redirected back to the main page. If I now click, you can see it's redirected back to main page. So that is the main thing that you'll have to take care of. Always remember, you cannot get something unless that something is set, right? You're asking model response and session, right, when model does not have model. Now your model has response right? Now the model has session. It's as simple as setting username and password. Because what you are doing here is you are setting the username and you are setting the password, and only then you can compare the username and password in login. If you're passing username, if you're passing password, right, you have to pass everything, right? Whatever you required in accounts controller is meant to be passed. Now since you have passed, you have done m.set session, now you can do m.get session. Now then you have done m.set response, you can do m.get response. Yeah, we still have specific problems here. Only when you know what is bad will you be able to know what is good. Only when you know what is wrong will I be able to make you understand what is right, right? So now you can see that reusability is still not happening here. Same code here, same code is here, right? And maybe if our website has 100 pages or maybe 200 pages, we can ill afford to, copy paste these line of code. For example, if I have to change response and request, I'll have to change it for 100 places. Yeah, still, so this is a bit of overhead that we'll have to get rid of since we are doing object-oriented programming. And that's the magic of object-oriented programming, that we reuse the code and we distribute the code in such a manner that every function, every class, every library is doing its own job without even peeping into others' job, right? That's what our motto is. So, right? So we'll do it slow and steady, but we should not skip the topic for today. And the topic for today is going to be cookies, right? So we know that cookies are temporary piece of data stored inside client computer for authorization and for any other purpose, right? You can go to Amazon and Amazon makes, Amazon will set around 10 to 15 cookies inside your computer, right? Because Amazon has to track what you are doing in the website so that they can do analytics, right? They can show you the correct product. They remember the products that you have seen and are shown your interest in, right? And FB and Gmail, right, for authorization purposes, they set cookies, right? And there is a specific time duration that they set cookies for. So whenever cookie is set for time duration, right, or cookie persists with timings, right, so that is called as persistent cookie, right? So number one. Number second thing, have you seen that remember me button, right? If you go to any login page, you'll always see a remember me button, right? Or remember me checkbox, right? Like this. So remember me checkbox will be available or with almost every website nowadays, right? Because even if you see Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Gmail, right, so that has remember me, right, checkbox, so that the next time when you close the browser and you come back, you are remembered, right? So how does the server remember you? Your server remembers you something like this. So if I log in here, right, and this is welcome to our website. Now if I go from tab number 1 to tab number 2, the session is still remembered. The session is still remembered. Now the session is remembered across the request and response cycle, right? And throughout the session, throughout the browser session. But what if I close the browser, right? And after closing the browser, I revisit the website and go to, let's say I still go to welcome.jsp. So I'll say localhost and I'll go to welcome.jsp. You can see I'm thrown out, right? I get redirected back to the login page, right? So I'll show you once again. I get redirected back to login page. For example, if I log in, right, so let's see. Okay, now I'll copy this and close this and reopen the browser, go to welcome, right? So it does not, okay, go to welcome.jsp. Now you will be thrown out and you'll be redirected with due respect back to the login page, right? So this is because a session is lost, right? The communication which was taking place between server, or we can say the communication that was taking place between the web server and the client is lost because you just close your browser. Now what you need to do is you need to have that remember me button and tell your server, hey server, I want you to remember my session. Even if I close my browser, right, you need to remember me now. So I don't need to log in every time I go open the browser and log into your website. Please don't ask for credentials, right? Use cookies to maintain communication between my computer and web server, right? And for that, what we are going to do here is we are going to first let's go and make quickly, quickly, we are going to make underneath the password, right? So we are going to make remember me checkbox. So I'll say remember me is small, input type is going to be checkbox, so no need to maintain the state here, does not have any value. So okay, so checkbox, and name is going to be, let's call this as txt remember. Fine. So now you can clearly see we have this remember me checkbox. So now let us quickly see what does it return. I'll go to post and I will just copy this request.getParameter, and I'll say before I call the login function out.print is txt remember. Right, so now let's, alright, so let's go ahead and see. Now if I click the login button, we get null. You can see right here we are getting null. And now if I check it, we get on. So if it is checked, it's on. If it is not, it is null, right? So this is what we are going to differentiate, and this is what we are going to differentiate between creating a cookie and creating a session. So this is going to play a role in our conditional formatting. So once we go and do conditional formatting, but before that, I still have to take, if I have done user.set username, I have done user.set password, and I'm taking everything to this login function, I have to take this txt remember back to this login function. So what do? I have to do user.set remember. So but it does not have remember. So now what I'll do, I'll go to user class model, that is the model here, and I'll quickly jump in and make private string. Let's call this as remember. So after making remember, I'll right click getters and setters. Right, now getters and setters are available. I made my getters and setters. So let me reopen, not reopen, so let me go to login and say user.set remember, and it is going to be my request.getParameter remember. Now then, remember me is available with the login, and it is available with authorize as well. Now we have to play a role here in this authorize function, right? So now I'll first say if user.getRemember, we have done set remember, now we are going to do get remember. If user.getRemember is equivalent to null, that means if user has not checked the remember button, so in that case you can see right here it is going to be null when you have not checked it, right? If user.getRemember is equivalent to null, hey, in that case what you got to do is this, right? So in that case, create a session and do nothing, right? Only create a session and do nothing. You can see if user.getRemembered is null, you go and create a session. But now if it is not null, means that user wants cookie, not a complete non-persistent session, right? So we are more interested in persistent cookie now, so that's why it's not null. So if it is not null, means user has checked the remember me checkbox. So in that case, hey cookie, call http cookie, which is java x, can again see java x servlet dot http cookie, right? Java x servlet dot http dot cookie. Okay. Sorry. So I'll say cookie c is equivalent to new let's call this cookie, and it's a key and a value pair. So I'll say auth cookie, and the value that we are supplying is user dot get username. The rest remains the same. You can see user dot get username, right? It's a key and a value pair. Session dot set attribute key and a value pair. Cookie is equal to new cookie. You know, you can see key and a value pair. So now it's set. But now the difference comes here. I will say c dot set maximum age. Maximum age is 60 seconds into 60, that is 1 minute, and into 24 into 30. So we're setting this cookie 60 into 60, that's 60 seconds, 60 minutes for 24 hours, and those 24 hours for 30 days. So we are setting this cookie for 1 month, right? So this is the timing here. You can set, it's basically in seconds, and you can set your own timings, maybe 18 months, 20 months, right? So you can even say into 2, and then you're setting it for 2 months or 3 months. So it depends on you. Or let me set it for 120 days. All right. So it doesn't matter. And then after you set, now what you have to do, I told you that this cookie is meant to be saved inside client computer as a text file, right? So now you know that it's all about request and response. You request for a specific page, you get a response. You request for a cookie, you get back the response. Now in this case, what is the response going to be? Right? So if I set remember me as true or checked, what do you think the response will be? The response has to be a live and a valid cookie that's set inside client computer, right? That means I have to add this cookie to response. So I will say, do I have response here? Yes, response is here. So I will say user dot get response dot set cookie. Okay, user dot get, no, we cannot set it, just a moment. User dot get response dot set cookie, no, we cannot. So set maximum age is here, right? So it is request dot set cookie. Or response dot set cookie. So I'll again use user dot get response dot add cookie. Yeah, it's a response dot add cookie C. So now you have added cookie and set cookie to the response stream. Now then cookie is going to be valid. One more security measure that I want you to take is c dot, you can say c dot is HTTP only. So now what it does, will keep cookie available for the HTTP environment only. If someone tries to hijack the cookie from localhost, will not be able to get the cookie because it will be only available for HTTP environment. So it is a, we are going to learn securities in great detail in JSP securities, but yeah, since we were discussing cookies, and it's just a security measure that you have to take care of. Now this is set cookie available for HTTP only, so that no one tries to hijack it from localhost, right, or from his own computer. So now then everything is done. If the session button is, if the remember button is not clicked, you create a normal session. If then the session button is created, you create a cookie, right? So that means, I repeat for the last time, remember me is checked. So it is not null, you go and create a cookie. If it is not checked, right, you go and create a session. And always remember, set the age and add cookie to the response. Add cookie to the response stream. And that's it. Now let's see cookie. I will say Fahim and password, right? And now you can see that we have been redirected. And I go to application and cookies, and you can see no cookies created. Now I'll log out and I'll say Fahim and password. Session is not going to get created, and I'll say remember me. Now we should get auth cookie. Now we are getting auth cookie here. Now despite of creating cookie, I will not be able to go to welcome page. Welcome page is going to throw me back. That is the only reason, and the reason behind that is that authorize function here is only checking for session, right? You can see that authorize function is only checking for, is authorized, sorry, is only checking if the session is started. Now in this case session is not started, right? So now what we are going to do here, if session is not started, right, what you got to do is, I will say else, and now what you got to do here, if cookie, right, and if cookie, how let me say, if or let's say first cookie, else what I do, cookie C is equivalent to, now I request one more thing here, because I have added cookie to the request stream. Now I have to get back cookie, right? So I may have to use a request here, because we have added cookie to response stream here. Let me go back and see accounts controller authorize. Yeah, we have added cookie to the response stream, user.getResponse, yani ki response.addCookie, right? We have done it, but now we have to get the cookie back, and we cannot call response. Now we have to request for the cookie, right? But the request is not available here, right? So for that, I'll go to my model class once again, and I have HTTP servlet request. Let's create HTTP servlet. Now we have created HTTP servlet request member variable, and let's quickly go and create getters and setters for that. And we have to make that available here. So I will say m.set a request as the implicit request available here, welcome page, on the welcome page, and we'll do here m.set request as request. Yeah, I know that we're doing it quite a many times. It would be better if we integrate only one file here and you reuse the same code. We will be reusing the same code in the upcoming lectures. That is the problem. The problem still remains here, so we'll rectify this problem. So cookie C is equivalent to, now we can say user dot get, it's model, it's not user, m dot get request dot get, you can say that cookies is returning array of cookies, right? And you can see here model object is m, not user, so that's why we say m dot get request dot get cookies. And cookies, what does it return? It returns array of cookies. It's not returning a single cookie, so that's why we have to take it as an array, right? So cookie C is equivalent to m dot get request dot get cookies. That is the problem, because as I said earlier, when we started cookies, I said that we can have as many cookies as you want. The server can create as many cookies as he wants inside the client computer. So for that purpose, if I say get cookie, which cookie? If there are 20 cookies, 10 cookies, 5 cookies, which cookie are you talking of? That is why we do not have an option of getting a single cookie in JSP. We have this option of get cookies. So what get cookies does, it calls for all the cookies, right? It returns all the cookies. And now we can do here, we can do comparison here. So we can call all the cookies and see which cookie are we trying. And in our case, we are looking for auth cookie. Remember, we're looking for auth cookie, right? So let me run a for loop. So I will say, okay, let me do this. So I will say if C is not equivalent to null. So if C is not equivalent to null, okay, fine. If C is not equivalent to null, right, if cookie has something, so I will use for, let's choose for each Java 8 for cookie C in, or we can say rows in C, and this is the for loop that we will loop through, right? What we are doing, we're calling the same cookies, right? And we call this as a row, right, in this C, right? The type is C, and once we iterate through the cookies, we are going to iterate through and call individual cookie as rows here, right? What we can do here, let me create it here for you. Let us create a string var just to show you. So I will say string name is equal to empty, right? So I can say name plus is equal to rows. So let's see how many cookies do we get back, right? So what I do, once I navigate through, first row returns the first cookie, goes to name, right, and keeps the cookie thereby, because we are concatenating. Do not remove the previous value. Plus means, right, assign to name without removing the previous value, right, a new cookie. So all the cookies are now going to be saved inside this name, which we are going to now check. And in this else function, right, we are going to do the same. Let us do this user.m.setMaxAge, and we are going to use set name. Now name has all the cookie names. I can go to now welcome, right, because now the cookie is started. We should be able to go back to welcome page and check what is inside welcome. Okay, now let's get rid of this. Alright, let's go back to welcome page, and now this is the welcome page here. And now what I can do right here is out.print user, or we still have m here, m.getMessage, just to check how many cookies are returned and nothing else. Alright, so now we can see out.print m.getMessage. It is accounts controller if is null. Okay, if the session is null, go to cookie. So let me delete this first so that we check cookies only. Okay, now you can see that it has returned one cookie and two cookies. So let us get name of those cookies. And let's say rows.getName. So we are getting cookies by name now. So we have JSession ID and auth cookie. So it has returned two cookies now. That's what I was talking of, that we have to call cookies and get all the cookies instead of getting a specific cookie. Now, even if you want a specific cookie, you still have to loop through all the cookies. That's what I was talking about, right? So now what we are doing here, since cookie is called, so let it be here. So we're not interested in displaying name. I was just showing you. So I'll delete it, out.println m.getMessage. It was just to show you in case if you do not understand, right, what get cookies return back. It returns back all the list of cookies. And now what we are going to do right here, so I will say if, okay, we have already deleted it. Let me do it again. Okay, I will say, let me take it out. So I'll say if m.getSession.getAttribute authentic session. If the session is not started, do not now redirect. If the session is not started, wait a second, hold on, halt. You still have to check. If the session is not started, then, right, you have to check if the session is null. You have to check if the cookie is null as well, right? So you have to check for two different things now. That is where the magic lies, right? So let me see. Okay, we still have one more brace right here. Okay, so now if the session is null, the second job is to check, right, if the cookie is not null, right? So you are having two different jobs, right? So session should not be null and cookie should not be null. Only then, if both of them are null, only then redirect the user back to the login page. So if C is not equal to null, and if everything goes fine, okay, that is no problem, right? And yeah, absolutely good. So set message is not to be done, right? So now once you are navigating through cookies, right, you don't have to do this. So name is not required anymore. Right, So now you can say if, right, what was the cookie name? Or if rows dot get name dot equals, ignore case, special case has to be ignored, if it equals auth cookie, right? So if it equals auth cookie, or we can say if it is not equivalent to auth cookie, right, then you have to redirect the user to main page, right? So what we are trying to do here, I'll just make you understand once again, right? If the session is null, right, if the session is null, right, go and check if the cookie is also null, right? So if everything is null, then redirect user back to the login page. So that's what we are doing here. I repeat. Okay, let's see whether it works or not. So I go to welcome, the session is null, we are redirected back to main page, and I go and check I go and check. Now the cookie is null, we are redirected back to main page. Okay, let's log in with session first. Yeah, now it's working absolutely fine, right? And let us log in with cookie now. Let's log in with cookie, and no, it's still not working fine with cookies. If cookie is not equivalent to, if C is not equivalent to null for cookies, if it is not equivalent to auth cookie, is that what the cookie name was? Okay, let's go to authorize function at check auth cookie. Yeah, right. Get name. If it is not equivalent to auth cookie, then response dot redirect to main page. So I'll have to check back. So let us say inspect element. Go to application and delete all the available cookies so that you start fresh. Load the main page. Password. Click. Remember, me is not working, I suppose. Okay, give me a second, I'll come back and correct it. We'll have to see the error first. Okay, now let's see what are we doing here. So let us first create an object here. Cookie C is equal to request.getCookies. It's done. If session is null, right? If the session is null, do not only check for the session, check for cookies. Right now, once we loop through, let me tell you how many cookies are going to be returned. First, it's going to return the session cookie, right? Maybe if it returns more than one cookie, right? So you say when you loop through cookies, maybe first cookie is J session ID, right? So does that match? If session, no, it does not match auth cookies, so it's going to redirect. But auth cookie may not be at element number. So let's, for example, say we have element number 0, cookie number 1, and we have cookie number 2. What if our cookie is at place 2? Means we have to do 3 iterations, right? And if I do only 1 iteration and I say, response or redirect to main page, so that is going to cause problems, right? So to cope up with that problem, what are we going to do here? Let us create a boolean is valid cookie variable, and let's take it false. So initially is valid is false. Only when the cookie is found and it matches auth cookie, then this is valid is going to be true, right? So this option, that means once you call the authorize function, the first thing it does, it is going to check if the session is null. If the session is not null, so this is not going to get executed. And now if the session is null, go and check for cookies, right? And out of all the cookies that you are iterating through, if you find auth cookie, please, this is valid cookie is going to be true. Otherwise, is valid is always false, right? So now what I do here, I will say if is valid cookie is equivalent to false, please redirect him back to, so let's say m dot get response, m dot get response dot send redirect back to main page.jsp, as simple as anything. So let us try this now. If I go to welcome, so cookie is not set, neither is the session, we are redirected back. And now let us start the session first. So I'll say Fahim and password. So this is the session. So let me go ahead, Fahim and password. So let me log in, remember me, and still it's not happening. If is valid cookie is equal to false. So let us say if is valid cookie is false, right? So m.getResponse.send redirect to. So this is going to be true only if you find auth cookie, and this is going to get executed only when the session is null. So I suppose this should work fine. So let me delete all. Right, and let us refresh the page. So Fahim, PASSWRD, click remember me. Yeah, it's working fine now. You can see you go to welcome.jsp. Now if I delete the auth cookie and the session, I get redirected back to main page. And now we can say without creating a cookie, if I log in, right, so without creating a cookie, if I log in, is creating a bit of problem here, because once I log in, sessions should be available. Authentic underscore session is what the session name is. Authorize, yeah, it's authentic session. If it is null, right, if it is null, only then go and create. If it is not null, yeah, we have to still go for else here. If it is not null, right, so I will say is valid cookie is still going to be true, right? So now both ways we are checking. If the now first, if we check for the session, if it is not null, that means the session is started. Go and keep is valid true, and is valid false will only redirect you, right? And now if it is null, go and check for the cookie, right? Only if you find auth cookie, set is valid true, and then yeah, it should work now, right? So let's go to main page, Fahim, password, and we get redirected. Now we don't have auth cookie here. See, do we have? No, we do not have. Let's sign out and let us see welcome.jsp. Yeah, absolutely fine. So now let us write password and click remember me, and now you can see auth cookie. Now this is cookies, and our second test is going to be like this, right? So if I go to main page and I click on remember me, let's first not click on remember me, Fahim, and password is password. I log in welcome.jsp, I close the browser, I reopen the browser, and the session is lost. Now if I go to welcome.jsp, the session is it should have been lost, but it is not because the cookie is already started. Right, so I will have to see. If I go to welcome.jsp, let me first see all the cookies and delete all the cookies. Where do you find cookies here? God knows where. Memory, performance, network, debugger, right, and console, elements, I don't know. Internet Explorer has some different settings, you know. Alright, so it has some different settings. Let's dock it down right here. And let me do one thing to get rid of cookie here, because we have to remove the cookie, right? And to remove the cookie, what I will do here in the login, in login.jsp, I'll first remove the cookie, right? So I will say remove all the cookies, okay? So I'll go back to accounts controller, and instead of doing all what we are doing here, if is valid cookie, right, so what I do right here, dot equals ignore case, so I will say c dot let's say about if it is valid, right, so I will say user dot, which is in our case m dot get response dot set, or let's call cookie directly rows dot set maximum age as 0. I'm removing the cookie, right? So let's go to welcome page and remove cookie. Now the cookie is removed. I will now set it to true and check, because I don't know how to remove cookie using IE. We hardly use IE. Who uses IE? Right, so let's say about now the cookie is not set. If I go to welcome, right, so the cookie is, it's still set. I don't know whether cookie is set or what. So I'll go to welcome.jsp. It's still set, right? So in our case the cookie is still set, but if I use the same welcome.jsp here, yeah, the cookie is still set. So why don't I delete it? If I go to welcome.jsp, now the cookie is not set. Go to welcome.jsp, no. Fahim, password, click. So now the cookie is not set, right? So you can see, sign out, the cookie is not set. Welcome, the cookie is not set. Yeah, it's absolutely fine. The cookie is not set here. All right, so now if I go to welcome here, the cookie is set here using this. So now if I sign out, so I go to welcome.jsp, the cookie is still set using this browser right here. So let me go to temp directory. So I'll say ampersand tmp ampersand. Okay, let me delete all the temporary files in here. By the time it deletes all the temporary files, we'll have to keep on checking for IE. Okay, it still does not remove. So do we have developer tools here? Right click, inspect element. Do we have anything else? View source, read aloud, and different things are there. Okay, so I'll say skip all. All right. Fine. There is no application here, you know. Debugger is there, network is there, performance, memory is there. Okay, you can see this here. Storage, yeah, storage is here, so it's in the storage. Yeah, I'll go to cookies and you can see auth cookies set here. So I'll have to manually delete it. Now once I've deleted the cookie, now let's see if I go to welcome page, I am redirected back to main page. So let's start with the session. Password, and it's the normal session that we are starting. You can see that the cookie is not started. Now if I close the browser and I reopen the browser, right? Localhost welcome.jsp. Yeah, I go back to main page. The moment I go to welcome.jsp, I go back to main page. Now let us try cookie. Password, and you can see that we are at welcome.jsp. So now let us close down the browser again and open the browser, close the browser, sorry, open the browser again and log in localhost welcome.jsp. and now you can see that welcome.jsp, even after closing the browser, has been valid and it's remembering you for 30 days now. So for 30 days you don't have to log in again. So I go to main page, right, and if I go to welcome, and you can see the cookie is still valid, right? So this is where the cookie validation is happening, right? So it doesn't matter how many times you close your browser, the cookie will remain there, right? So far we have been able to successfully create the cookie. Let me give you an overview, and still you will see that one more error that you'll keep on getting. I'll just rectify that also. Now what you are doing, your isAuthorize function is doing some job here. It has a work cut out. Create an object of cookies, and initially boolean is valid is false. Now if in case the session is null, now only if the session is null will you enter the if, right? If the session is not null, is valid is true, and you go out of the function and the function will not redirect you, right? But if it is null, then you go ahead and you iterate through cookies. If you find auth cookie, set is valid to true, right? Otherwise, if you do not find is valid, auth cookie while iterating through the cookie, you still is valid is by default false. So is valid is going to be true only if auth cookie is found, or if the session is not equivalent to null in else, and then you are going to send redirect. But yeah, one more thing that you have to take a note of. For example, if I log in using a cookie, all right, and I log in using a cookie, right? And now if I go to inspect element and I manually remove the cookie, we know that we still have to remove cookie using sign out here, right? So if I delete auth cookie, first instance will throw an exception, right? It has to throw an exception. It did not. So let me first try this. So I'll say Fahim. Okay, let me go to welcome. Yeah, you can see that's throwing an exception, null pointer exception. So what's happening? You are iterating through the cookie when the cookie is absolutely null, right? So to save this, what you have to do, right, you will say if c, right, which is basically your cookie that you are getting right here, c m.request.getCookies, you will say if c is not equivalent to null. Only when c is not null will I be able to do this, right? If cookie is not equivalent to null, only then this section will work, right? As simple as anything, right? So if it is not null, right, then you check whether there is auth cookie or not. So this is going to save this null pointer exception. Now if I go to welcome page, you can see now if I delete all the cookies and make cookie null, now you will see that it will operate. So let's say go to welcome, and now you can see we don't have any exception even if all the cookies are null. So let me try it once again. Welcome.jsp, open Internet Explorer, go to welcome.jsp. The cookie is still set. You are setting it for quite a while. So now you remember me is absolutely working fine, right? And each and everything, practice hard, and there is some kind of logic that we have used here. Your logic can be different, right? It can absolutely be different as of mine, but yeah, your logic should not create any null pointer exceptions, or it should not throw any exception, right? So create an object of cookie initially is false. Now only if the session has not been started, then you enter this. If the session is started, you go and set is valid true, right? And you come out of the function. Only when the session is not started and the cookie is not null, when the cookie matches auth cookie, then this is valid is true, right? And now everything is working absolutely fine. And now you can see even if you go to profile, you will perform the same action, right? Now let's say about if I say remember me, if I click on remember me, and now if I go to profile, still profile is actually accessible, right, using cookies as well. So this was cookies, right? I hope you have understood everything. I shall be sharing the sketch of the cookie class. You can find and download the sketch down in the description section, or if it's not in the description, you can still find it in the comment section, right? Practice hard and let me know if it works, right? So bye bye, take care.